we're talking about. I'm funny because I was thinking this morning how important the Bhagavatam class is. Sometimes you think, who wants to listen to me again, or something like that. But actually, that's not the mood. I was thinking while I was just before preparing for the class that this is Krishna. Krishna is appearing in the Bhagavatam. That's the bottom line. We're like little tiny servants of the Bhagavatam, but we have to give ourselves fully and understand, because Krishna can speak through us. It's as simple as that. As lowly as we may think ourselves, still Krishna has that ability to speak through the devotees, and especially if the devotees are sticking in parampara. So I'm going to get on to another section here. It's in the Nectar Devotion, and because it is a particularly difficult section, but this is called Devotional Service in Friendship, and it speaks about this how Draupadi is in such a difficult situation that even Bhishma is completely moved. This is Draupadi says, "My dear Govinda, your promise is that your devotee can never be vanquished. I believe in that statement, and therefore, in all kinds of tribulations, I simply remember your promise, and thus I live." So just to take that in again, that Draupadi here, this is a particular section, Bhagavatam, where Draupadi's sons have just been killed. Arjuna is trying to placate the situation by saying he's going to run off, get the person, chop off his head, who's Ashwatam, bring it back, and then put it so that Draupadi can put her foot on the head. So that's supposed to give some reprieve. But actually, you can imagine what has happened just as this occurs. I don't know if anyone has ever gone to bed with a very problematic situation, and then they wake up and they think it's okay, and then suddenly this memory comes back. So you can imagine if you happen to get some sleep and then you wake up and then you think, oh, the nightmare is continuing. My sons have just been killed, all 5 of them. But here Draupadi says, your devotee can never be vanquished. I believe in that statement, and therefore in all kinds of tribulations I simply remember your promise, and thus I live. So this is what Draupadi's faith is like, and this is something which we may aspire for. And it says here, the purport is that Draupadi and her 5 husbands, the Pandavas, were put into severe tribulations by their cousin brother Duryodhana, as well as by others. The tribulations were so severe that even Bhishma Dev, who was both a lifelong brahmachari and a great warrior, would sometimes shed tears thinking of them. So that's Bhishma Dev, when he's thinking of the tribulations of the Pandavas. And Bhishma Dev went through quite a few tribulations himself, but because his attachment to the Pandavas, and because he knows their attachment to Krishna, he's actually he sheds tears because of it. He was also surprised that although the Pandavas were so righteous and Draupadi was practically the goddess of fortune, and although Krishna was their friend, still they had to undergo such severe tribulations. Though their tribulations were not ordinary, Draupadi was not discouraged. She knew that because Krishna was their friend, ultimately they would be saved. So try to have that as a thought process. I remember, it's just things that you remember from. I remember what Prabhu used to say. He used to always quote this. You know, whenever we were going through some trouble or some difficulty or some brush with some real problems or whatever it was, he would say, well, Babu, remember the Pandavas? They had to go through so many difficulties, you know, and Krishna was with them, you know. He would often quote that, you know, in a way of kind of encouraging the devotees to keep going no matter what, keep going, keep going. So this is there right in the middle of the Mahabharata. It is the Bhagavad Gita is in the middle of the Mahabharata as well, And then this section is in the middle of the Bhagavatam. So we should have no doubt that Krishna is speaking here. He's speaking very clearly here. He's emphasized this point, and he's emphasized the point of Draupadi. She's been put into such difficulty. She has Krishna as her friend. She has the most powerful husbands that you can ever imagine. Not just one, but 5 of the greatest warriors to ever walk the earth. And still she was put into such distress. And she had Krishna as her protector. So let us not forget that incredible situation. And for ourselves, we should also take that, try to somehow or other gain that faith that Draupadi had, and that Krishna, declare it boldly, O Arjuna, my devotee will never perish. And Krishna says, it's not himself, because we know sometimes Krishna, he had to, as they say, had to tell a lie. What was the occasion? Oh yeah, he said he wouldn't get involved in the battle. And so he took up his wheel and ran at Bhishma. But still, it said that he didn't really take part because he didn't take up any weapons. So the wheel wasn't a weapon as such. But just in case, he said, declare it boldly, O Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. So this, we should always be reminded of Draupadi, of the Pandavas, and of their complete dependence on Krishna, even in the most difficult situations. Our good friend Parashuram, one time he was in Ireland, and he was, I think it was around Christmas time, and he was driving, and unfortunately he had an accident, and it was on a narrow road, and it was a very kind of, the person he drove into was a seemingly well-respected member of society, but he was actually driving on the wrong side of the road. And, you know, of course, when you come into that situation, then there's so many disputes can happen. But in any case, the thing went before a court, and Para was there before the court, and, you know, a devotee would seem to be, oh yeah, it must be that person because this very respectable person said this. But luckily enough, the judge took Para's side, because he examined the details, and then he asked the other guy, how could you have been like on this side if this, and this, and this, because there was proper proper kind of analysis was done afterwards. And then he said, case dismissed. And Para couldn't believe, he was just depending on Krishna. I don't even know if he had a lawyer. But Krishna protected him in that situation. So even in the most difficult scenarios, that's the time when we actually need to depend on Krishna. And we should have full faith in Guru and Krishna, that they will protect us, and that Srila Prabhupada will protect us. So let's examine the situation. It's how is it that this Brahmin, in this most Kshatriya-like time, when there's all these regulations were there, I mean, even at the end of the battlefield, they would go in and they would no more fighting, and they would all be friends with each other. So how come this Brahmin actually acted in this way? We will get some idea of why he did this, because we understand that he's the son of Dronacharya. And Dronacharya was seemingly killed in a most heinous way, a most trickster type way, because he was a great warrior, and he actually couldn't be beaten. That's the bottom line. Just like Bhishma, Dronacharya could not be beaten. So Krishna knew this. Krishna was aware that Dronacharya could not be beaten. He was such a great warrior. So therefore, they had to resort to another method. So Krishna knew that the only way that Dronacharya would not continue, this shows you the attachment that Drona had for his son, Ashvatam. So we starting to get some picture. So if Drona had this attachment for Ashvatam, Ashvatam had this attachment for Dronacharya. So it was said that Ashvatam is dead. Just tell him that Ashvatam is dead. And, you know, if Bhima said it, you know, Dronacharya probably wouldn't believe it. Even if Arjuna said it, Dronacharya wouldn't believe it. But if Yudhishthira said it, then he would believe it, because Yudhishthira wouldn't tell a lie. So then they went ahead and they killed an elephant called Ashwatam, and therefore Yudhishthira had to say to Dronacharya, Ashwatam, and then all the bugles, while Yudhishthira kept his word. The elephant is dead. All the bugles, Ashwatam, woo, the elephant is dead. And then immediately Dronacharya dropped down his arms. And then what happened? Then the great warrior, the son of Drupad, whom was completely trained by Dronacharya in all the arts of military warfare, came up and chopped off his head while Dronacharya was in meditation. It's even said that he may have actually already left at that point, but that's another finer point. But he chopped off his head, basically. And so then you can understand now, when Ashwatam hears that, he understands that the impenetrable army, his impenetrable father, was defeated by underhand methods. That's how he's looking at it. So that's why we can see that Dronacharya becomes very angry. So there's a whole complex morality starts to come in here. And then we understand that also Drupad is the father of Draupadi and Drishtadyumna. And Draupadi obviously then marries Arjuna. So but yet Arjuna was Dronacharya's best disciple. He gave him all the military arts, everything that he knew he gave him, above anybody else, even above Arjuna. So that's a very, very interesting point as well, that even above Arjuna, he gave this, he gave all the military arts. So we can see that Ashwatam could well have been very angry at, feeling bad that his father would have given all of this energy to Arjuna. In other words, he favored Arjuna. Arjuna was his favorite. He was his favorite disciple as such. So who knows, there could have been also enmity there, because then not only does he kill the 5 sons of the Pandavas, but then he kills Arjuna's grandson. He tries to kill Arjuna's grandson in the womb, Parikshit. So what a character do we have here? His father was removed, so therefore he wants to make sure that there's no Kuru left. That is the envy that is going on. Even when he was completely, his hair was cut off, in other words, almost like he was defamed completely, he still wasn't finished. And he was also such a rascal that he used when Arjuna was pursuing him this time, he used the Brahmastra to try to kill Arjuna, even though he had no means to draw it back, but Arjuna did. So Dronacharya, in one sense, still lives through Arjuna in this situation, that his morality still lives, that Arjuna could withdraw both the Brahmastras back. So we can understand the complexities that are going on here. Another further complexity is that Dronacharya is such a warrior and such a noble person that he even teaches the person, he gives the Brahminical skills to the person who is going to kill him, who is Drishtadyumna. He gives the skills to this person. Can you imagine? So it's such an incredible, so incredibly pious. And we see the attachment that Dronacharya had for Ashwatam, because basically when he went back, he was a poor Brahmin, but he grew up in the same school as Drupad. And then when Drupad became king, Dronacharya went, and actually at the time Drupad said he would share his kingdom with Dronacharya. So Dronacharya went back and to remind Drupad of that. But Drupad, that's only something I did as a child. I don't want to have anything to do with you, basically. And the reason that Dronacharya felt really bad was that his son wasn't able to get proper nourishment when all the other people were getting it. He couldn't afford it. He was just so poor. So then basically he took refuge in the court, and then he became the trainer of Arjuna. So then as his dakshin, he asked Arjuna to go and reclaim half the kingdom which was his from Drupad. So Arjuna went and he defeated Drupad, and basically, again another twist in the plot, that despite this defeating his future father-in-law, Drupad, because he knew the understanding that this is the great warrior, he gave his daughter to him, knowing well that his daughter and son would become powerful enough to defeat Dronacharya. So therefore we see the complexities of the situation. But there is one very important factor throughout all of this, and that is that this is all Leela, and it is happening by Krishna's arrangement. So while all of this is happening, this is all happened from many generations back. So we can see that Krishna's breath is very long. We may not be able to understand it, but it is there in evidence. So therefore, so many actors in this drama, they were all part of this. They were all part of a drama that was brought about by Krishna. So then you might ask the question about where does free will come into all of this, and where does destiny come into all of it? This is a question that has been brought up throughout the ages. At what point do we have any freedom, and at what point is it we're just puppets in the hands of destiny? But we can see that Draupadi also has the answer to this, because she depends fully on Krishna. Krishna is our friend. So despite what is going on, though no matter how heinous or how difficult it becomes, if we take shelter in Krishna, then we will have our relationship with Krishna. Then we will have our eternal rasa with Krishna. It's like the other great lady is son of Kunti. She was praying for calamities so she could remember Krishna. So this is the place where we want to go to. We want to become part of Krishna's army, but we also want to take shelter in Krishna no matter what. So we have the free will to interact with Krishna. Everything is new and fresh in that situation when we are depending on Krishna, and that everything is a free will, that we can make that choice all of the time to take shelter in Krishna. So in that sense, this is there. Also, in another sense, we can look at Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharati abhutanana dharmasya tadatmanam shichamneham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practices and a subsequent rise in irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Paritranaya sadinam. The next verse explains that in order to re-establish the principles of religion and to annihilate the miscreants, at that time I descend in every millennium. So in that way, we can understand that there is destiny going on. So even now, destiny is going on. Destiny is going on in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Lord Chaitanya appeared 500 years ago to bring in the golden age, and there is a war which is going on in this golden age, just like in all the other circumstances that we're looking at here. It's the battlefield of Kurukshetra. This is when this was spoken. There's so many different there's so many wars that are going on. Like we had Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and so many situations in which Krishna appears at particular times. And so at this particular time, Krishna is also appearing, but in the form of his holy name and in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Sva Dharmopagate, that he appears just when Krishna takes shelter in the words of the Bhagavatam at this particular point and this particular time. And so as devotees, these are the two areas where we should be putting all our faith and all our trust. We should be developing full faith in the holy name. We should always understand the potency and the power of Krishna's holy name, because that's what Srila Prabhupada is doing. He is encouraging us all of the time to take this shelter in the holy name to even on a daily basis to break through our tiredness, our distraction. Srila Prabhupada is waiting on the other end of that with open arms, welcoming us into the spiritual dimension. And then we can take up the mission of Lord Chaitanya then. And we can start to spread the glories of the holy name and the glories of the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada, he went through so many places in Delhi, in Mumbai, just to deliver his Bhakti Galad magazine, just for a few paisa. He spent so much of his time translating the Bhagavatam, just so that he would be able to deliver it, to follow the instruction of a spiritual master. It took so much effort to come to America to actually to give this message. So he was taking shelter all of the time in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and in the holy name. So in that way, we are also like Draupadi, in this very dark ages of Kali Yuga. We're depending on Krishna, but we're also fighting, because Kali Yuga is the most. I mean, here we have, back in Dwapara Yuga, we have a Brahmin who's acting like a cad, a complete dog. He's lower than a dog, but yet he's coming from a Brahmana background. So although Srila Prabhupada wanted us to try to reintroduce the Varnashram system, still in Kali Yuga, things are getting worse and worse and worse. So I can project back 60 years. I'm 60 years old, but I can project maybe further back. Maybe I can project back to the 30s and 40s, which is maybe 90 years. My parents were growing up, because they would tell me about what was happening then. And then, I can see the piety that was going on in their religious systems, and that most people believed in God. Most people went to church, they went to mass on a regular basis. We were having a discussion last night in the Nectar Devotion. And Praveen, who's from India, she was saying her mother and grandmother would just always look at their kids and say, "You don't know what you're missing. You don't know what we used to have." And she used to talk about the village situation which was there, and that their parents, at the end of every day, they used to come back. They used to do bhajans after the day's work. They did bhajans. They read Mahabharata. They would read Ramayana at the end of the day. And the start of the day, where they would pray and they would chant. So this was the natural tendency. So naturally, you had some very pious children would come from that. But because Kali Yuga is so powerful at the moment, and the demoniac influence is becoming much more stronger, then we find today there is no varnish, there's no Garbhadan Shamskar. So that's not there anymore. That's been lost. So, any sort of thing, Varna Shankar is the order of the day. So there's no religious marriage, There's no proper marriage goes on. And then you have infidelity in marriage. That didn't happen as much. It happened, but it didn't happen as much. Then there was no divorce. Prabhupada was shocked when he came to America. He had his marriages. He got his kids married. But then they were just, the first one or the first several started to break up. They just went with somebody else. So that does have an effect on society. That actually has a huge effect on society, because the kids then don't have any clarity when they're in their upbringing. They have this stepmother beat them, or the stepmother beat them, or two stepmothers back beat them. There's so much insecurity then, whereas at a time when there's supposed to be security for the kids growing up, then it is completely destroyed. So we have our Krishna Anandini giving wonderful talks about how this Grihastha Vision Team, how we're trying to develop the whole Grihastha ashram so that our kids can develop. And we have our Samba Prabhu, who used to devotee in Ireland, but he's now in Mayapur. He's a teacher in the Gurukul there. Now we know Samba. He's tried to set up rural communities in Spain and in Mayapur and so on. But his conviction now is that the next generation that he's involved in the Gurukul, that they will have the intelligence to set up these Vedic villages, shall we say, around the world, and that is the next phase of Srila Prabhupada's attack to bring stability to society, basically. And even in our own situations, we have our Inishrath there, which is starting to develop its own self-sufficiency, and then there's also some of our congregational members, Megan and Christian down in Tullamore. They're starting to do their own growing and stuff like that, and Megan does yoga teaching. So gradually these little centers can spark up, and this reminds me as well of the old Irish custom whereby all the spiritual centers were the actual centerpiece of Irish life. The monastery was the center of the towns, and between the 4th and the 8th century, the monks from Ireland, they went out and they spread Christianity throughout Europe. They were the main people for establishing monasteries in Geneva, in Scotland, in France, all over, basically. They actually had a very law similar to called the Brehon law. The traditional Irish customs were very much to do with the Brahminical Brahmin in the centre, and then the other Varnas living around as well. So in similar ways, this is what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted to have the village with the Brahmins in charge, so that there could be peace and harmony in society. So this is the golden age that has been brought in, and it is, what can we do in this situation? We're surrounded by faithlessness. That's what Kali Yuga is about. It's there is no there is no security. There's no stability. And if you read Srila Prabhupada's purports, at the moment I'm reading in a section where Vena has been the king, and yet he's been replaced by King Prithu. But Prabhupada goes on, he talks quite at length about this current civilization, how it is destined to fail, and so on. And so many different sections, Srila Prabhupada, he talks about printing money in the trillions, and yet it creates huge, inflation, and basically that the whole systems will be destroyed. So we're pretty much in that particular situation ourselves at the moment, and so we're trying to take up the just like Draupadi in this purport here, she takes shelter in Krishna. So we have to take shelter on the holy name, and we have to try to spread it far and wide, and so therefore it is our duty as devotees to take that up. Okay, so I can stop there nice and early. It's quite a short class. And I don't know, Shani, have you got a phone there? We're going to see if there's any comments or any questions. So is anybody, any comments, any questions they'd like to add or subtract? Offences to be avoided. I wanted to read a little section here. Offenses to be avoided. Surrendering everything to the Lord. It's just a little bit about the Varnashram situation. Prabhupada is in page 112 in Nectar of Devotion, and it is in section 5 potent forms of devotional service. When Ramananda Roy is talking to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya neglects Varnashram because he said that this advancement of Varna and Ashram is merely external. There is a higher principle. In Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord says that one has to give up all other principles of elevation and take simply to the method of Krishna consciousness. That will help one in achieving the highest perfection of life. But then Prabhupada in the next paragraph says, in the 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord himself says, one should execute the prescribed duties of Varna and Ashram as long as he has not developed spontaneous attachment for hearing about my pastimes and activities. So anyone who's here listening and who hasn't who doesn't have a spontaneous attachment for hearing about the pastimes and activities may find themselves in this category. In other words, the prescribed forms of Varna and Ashram are ritualistic ceremonies of religion intended for economic development, sense gratification, and or salvation. All of these things are recommended for persons who have not developed Krishna consciousness. In fact, all such activities are recommended in the revealed scriptures only to bring one to the point of Krishna consciousness. But one who has already developed spontaneous attachment for Krishna does not require to execute the duties prescribed in the scriptures. So that's why we see that Srila Prabhupada, towards the end of his life, did recommend this process as well of Varna and Ashram. But basically what that means is that he recommended that devotees should cooperate with each other. They should become so fine-tuned in how to deal with each other, so fine-tuned in understanding the senses and sensibilities of each other, that we will cooperate very nicely, because we will be only thinking of the other person's welfare. We will be the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. We will develop those qualities of humility, because humility is so important to understand how someone else is thinking. We won't rush in and make so many assumptions about the other person. Oh, he's in Maya. He's just in Maya because da. Just see, he's doing this. We can approach situations in different ways, understanding that this person is a servant and a servant of Krishna. So everybody should be treated in a proper way. That is the also the Uttama Adhikari vision, but the Madhyama Adhikari vision also learns how to for preaching acts in such a way, but at the same time he sees everybody as a servant of God as well. So these are the fine-tunements that we need to develop in our spiritual life, so that we can make some proper indent into this difficult situation in Kali Yuga, so we can become part of Srila Prabhupada's army, and we will then give kind of help to others. We will become self-realized ourselves. We will take refuge in Bhagavatam and in the chanting of the holy name, to develop our relationship with Krishna, so we can become completely self-satisfied, and therefore we can fulfill the function of our become a self-realized devotee of Krishna. Haribol.
So just a few comments and a question. I think Chitrapini from Italy. Haribol.
Haribol Chitrapini. Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna, thank you for an interesting lecture and faith in the holy names.
Hare Krishna Jai. You are our example, Chitrapini. You definitely are an example in that. Haribol.
Nitya Seva David Essie says, thank you for mentioning about taking shelter of Krishna, especially in difficult times.
Yeah.
For me, it worked out as well. Taking shelter of hearing about Lord Krishna, it transformed my heart, and it was a realization for me.
Haribol. That's really good, Nitya Seva, because being Nitya Seva is in the very, how would you say, difficult situation. She's in the most fortunate situation that she's in Mayapur, but because there's restrictions in the temple, she can't actually go to see the wonderful Ashtasaki and Radhamadava and Panchatattva, and of course Lord Nrsingadev. But still, yeah, by taking shelter of hearing about Krishna, it is it's so many times Prabhupada says it in the books, and to take this complete shelter in the pastimes that are going on, It is it is there for us now, but it also in the future to go deeper and deeper. One of the ways which we can do that is to take shelter of devotees who are in that stage. We were reading last night in the Nectar Devotion how to take shelter of these advanced souls. So I know of late it's been like an absolute feast by going from lecture to lecture to lecture, sometimes getting up as far as 5 and 6 lectures a day of the different devotees, and all who are taking real faith in the Bhagavatam, and the 5 most important things: residing in a holy place, chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, and worshipping the deities. Of the 64 items, these 5 items were highlighted. So the taking the shelter of hearing and of the Bhagavatam, it's not an ordinary event. Some devotees were saying that you get up early, and because people don't get up early basically, or because they're living in the city scenarios, they don't see the glories of nature. That's one of the great gifts of this this difficult lockdown period, is that you can actually go and see nature at work. So every day the sun shines. So why wouldn't you not be grateful for that? Why not be grateful for the way the air is there? You can breathe in the air in your lungs. You can have digestion in your stomach. You can have the sunshine, the wind. All of these things are there in such a powerful way, so we can take shelter. So in the same way that the sun has arisen in the Bhagavatam, this is the beginning of our day. So forget about all our difficulties, in one sense. Forget about all that has happened to us. Forget about our conditioning. Forget about our karma. Just take shelter in this glorious uprising of the sun, of the Bhagavatam every day, and then everything will be satisfied. I remember in Mayapur, even after the class in the morning time and coming out, and there was a lady there, I think it was Hrimati was her name, and she used to sell these Krishna dolls. And I used to bring back, actually I have 2 of them here right in front of me, sitting on our piano. And I bought 3 dolls when I was there. But she was such an enthusiastic devotee, and she would be always talking about Krishna. It was like after coming from the class to meet this person selling these Krishna dolls and Balaram dolls, again, it was that feeling, it was like of an eternal feeling. I wasn't worried about my background. I wasn't worried about where I came from or what I did, or these things don't matter when we take shelter here in the Bhagavatam. So that's how powerful and how purifying the Bhagavatam is. We know how the sun is there. It's anyone who's growing at the moment, the sun is having such an effect on the plants, and the plants are growing, and the ground is being fertilized, and hopefully the rain will appear as well. The rain is coming, and will give life, And as Prabhupada said, you can't take shelter in your nuts and bolts. You can't eat them, We're dependent, and then we're dependent on the yajna, and of course the yajna is the holy name. So if ever we've been at all reluctant in the past to go on Harinam or to distribute books, if ever we've been reluctant during this time, and now we're not able to do it, doubly take up that strength now, and resolve from this day onwards that if ever I get a chance to go on Harinam, to go on book distribution, to give out some prasadam, or to share this message of Krishna consciousness with others, don't be lazy. Take the opportunity and use every opportunity to do that, because we can't do it now as much, but now in the future we'll be able to do it. Or even to give classes online or something, to spread this message this way. Please take that opportunity. So thank you for that question, Nityasaya.
I thought she was from Australia.
No.
And she said, Bhakti Shastri transformed my vision. I was not the same person after studying Bhakti Shastri, so many realizations like ripping of my heart, and I was so glad that I studied.
Yeah, the Bhakti Shastri is a powerful, of course, Nityasaya went to Mayapur for the 3-month intensive course, which our dear Shamananda Prabhu, he kind of recommends that. He doesn't like it so much online. He's one of our Brahminical devotees, and because he wants people to practically experience the whole event, not just that it's a kind of an academic study. But anyway, we are also going to try to develop that Bhakti Shastri, and several of us are thinking of taking up the course. There's a very good course going on as well at the moment. Sanjay Prabhu is doing the Namahata course as well. They allowed me to become part of it there for 1 week, a couple of weeks ago. Very powerful teaching going on in that as well, you know. So this change is very important for us, you know. And don't worry, it doesn't matter if you're old, if you're young, or whatever. There's no restriction. You can still do it. You know, you have the when Krishna was lifting up Govardhan Hill, even the old Brijbasis, they were holding up their umbrellas and their sticks to try to hold up the hill. We can still do our part, you know. This is all Krishna wants to see. He wants to see our enthusiasm. So that's it's Krishna, and it's just maybe I'll conclude on that point that Krishna doesn't need anything. Krishna doesn't need a beautiful building. He doesn't need any garlands of flowers in that sense. He's got tons of garlands, you know. He's got beautiful buildings, beautiful temples everywhere. But what he does want, he wants to see the love that has gone into. So he says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Tayam. You know, if one offers me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or water, I will accept. Or if we want to set up a beautiful place for Krishna's pastimes, like in Govindadweep, he wants to see that beautiful video that Jagannath Sutta Prabhu made the other day, of going around the Parikram path. Although it was amazing to see it in all the different sections there, but also it made us want, I want to do that more beautifully for Krishna. Mahamadra has got a little stash of Lakshmi there to buy new things for the different Parikram places, you know. So it's not the wood, but we want to do it beautifully for Krishna. We want to do the best we can, and that's what Krishna wants to see. So this is how we should spend our days and our hours and our minutes and our lives, taking off one slate after another, a whole list of slates for the roof of Govindadweep, and taking out the rotten beams and putting in new beams as well, you know, taking out the rafters that are rotten and putting in new rafters so that they'll last for many a year, and so that we'll have a beautiful home for Radha Govinda. So these are all the different activities that Krishna wants to see us do. So he gives us unlimited service, and then unlimitedly we should cooperate to spread this movement. Unlimitedly we should cooperate. We should look for every opportunity. Chitta Rupini, she's one of the persons who organises the European devotees leader meetings, and that's where we get together and we discuss so many different ways in which we're trying to spread Krishna consciousness. So these are all different ways we get together to spread this message of Krishna consciousness throughout the three worlds. Well, throughout even this small country that we're in, the small village that we're in, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. It's the mood in which we're doing this in as a service to Krishna, and then it becomes unlimited. That's how it becomes unlimited. Sometimes we can, you know, be negative in ourselves. I'm only doing a little bit. It's no good. Sure, what's the point anyway? Sure, who cares? No one knows. No, that's not the point. The point is that we do it for Krishna. You know, we become very enthusiastic and do our service, and then leave the rest of it to Krishna. If Krishna wants to glorify you, he'll glorify you. If he doesn't want to glorify you, that's also good. It doesn't matter. If you're doing it for Krishna, it's your service and seva to Krishna and the spiritual master. That is what Krishna wants to say, and that is what will purify us. Okay, so
this one has
Gulnara has a question.
Thank you personally, Prabhu, for showing me the power and glory of Harinam. I've only experienced it once, but hoping for more.
Hey, yes. That was an amazing Harinam that day when we opened the restaurant. Somebody was Dina was saying to me the other day that how Krishna, we did this amazing renovation in the restaurant, but it just happened 3 weeks before the lockdown. So and we had a record week in the second week. So Krishna was showing us how powerful this way of preaching is, and he said that we'd never have been able to get that together during now, because nobody would lend us the Lakshmi. No one would they'd never be able to set that up. But somehow or other, Krishna's timing was amazing, was immaculate, that he set it up that we were able to get this underway. And I'd say as well, Gulnara, that Harinam afterwards was providential, because the sun was shining. The minister, Prabhu was there. The minister, or the ambassador was there. Very nice devotee. And then we went out. The devotees came up from Tipperary, and we all went out on our Harinam for that day. And it was glorification. It was in celebration. We weren't boasting or anything like that, but it was a great celebratory Harinam. And so it's given us that taste that's still there. That's good to hear it. Parashuram Prabhu has given us this new van this new SUV for Inishrat, to make sure that we distribute prasadam, and also that every week, once a week, the devotees from Inishrat come down and do Harinam in Dublin, where there's a big catchment area. And devotees are also going to go out. Tim Prabhu is pushing to have it on a Tuesday. Who knows what day it will be? Hopefully it is. But that's a day, that's a time anyway, when we can all get together and actually just indulge in this yogya for the age, and just give out prasadam, give out the holy name, give out books, because that's the way that we will actually spread this Krishna consciousness. One last item here, and that is that a devotee who practices very seriously and carefully the morning program, his hearing, the chanting, that that gives one that nourishes the soul, and the soul absolutely glows, and people will notice a person who is glowing because of the practices of Krishna consciousness. When I came, first of all, I used to look at His Grace Tulsi Priya Prabhu. He was a Pujari at the time. And I was just blown out. I couldn't believe that there was some person who actually existed like this. That was my impression. He would go and come out from the Pujari room and go back in again. I actually even thought he lived there. It was just one of these people exists. And later I would just talk with him over bread and jam and hot milk in the evening time, and I would mean, he's an actual normal person, but he was still glowing. But Vaisheshika Prabhu, who's written in this book called what's Vaisheshika's book name?
Family Business.
Our Family Business. And this is what we're talking about. This is the real business of Krishna consciousness. He was saying one time he went to Hawaii, and they were all, for a week, they were going out. They were doing a really good morning program and going out during the day, doing Sankirtan. And but this particular morning, he went out and he was very, very fired up. And then the first person he met was a born again Christian. There was a couple. They were on honeymoon. And they said, no, we don't follow that. We don't give to that. We're born again Christians. We only give to our own mission. And then suddenly he just said to him, "That's wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that you're following this process. I have such respect. I'm so happy to have met you this morning." So they went off, and so he kept on going. It wasn't something artificial. It was just because of the energy that he got. That this is the way. This is how he reacted with him. Half an hour later, they came back and they said, "Listen, I want to apologize for the way we behaved there. We can see that you are actually a very good person and you're only there to do good. So please take a donation." And he said, Well, okay, that's really wonderful, but I can never take a donation unless somebody takes one part of my literature, when he had a Bhagavad Gita. So, and initially they were reluctant, but then they said, okay. And anyone who's been on the street and is trying to give something to a born-again Christian knows how difficult that is. But anyway, they gave the donation and they took the book. So my point is that this is a great opportunity for us if we can actually remain strict in our enthusiasm and our practices of Krishna consciousness. That this enthusiasm is all we've got, to attract and to give to other people, and if it can help and to deliver one book to one person who then reads it and then their life has changed. And as Nitya Seva then says, if you go to Mayapur or if you take up the Bhakti Shastri, then your whole life can change, and then we can start to enlist members in Lord Chaitanya's army. We're not going to be taking up guns and bows and arrows and whatever, but we're taking up the holy name, and let's just do it. Let's just see if we can get a good energy going there, and then people will start to take that seriously. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu, for your participation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Sankirtan Yogi Ki Jai.